He almost didn't notice her. She was just a cleaning woman, doing her job, moving a mop bucket out of his way. He was Viktor, a successful businessman, running late for meetings. Not exactly the kind of man who notices cleaning staff. He started to walk past her, and then something caught his eye. A small silver pendant on a thin cord around her neck. A key. A tiny, delicate, silver key. Viktor stopped. His briefcase almost slipped from his hand. He had bought that pendant himself, 26 years ago, at a jewelry stall in a train station, on the last afternoon he ever spent with his daughter. His 3-year-old daughter who disappeared that same day, and was never found. He stood in that corridor, heart hammering, unable to speak, unable to look away. The cleaning woman looked up at him. Blue eyes, a birthmark above her lip, exactly like his. Stay until the very end. Because what Viktor said to this woman, and what she told him in return, is one of the most extraordinary things I have ever heard. If this already got you, subscribe right now. Every week I bring you stories exactly like this one. Real people, real reunions, real miracles. Her name was Yulia, and the one thing you need to understand about her immediately, she had never in her life asked for help. Not once. Even when help would have been completely justified. She grew up in a children's home. Abandoned at 3 years old. Found alone on a train station platform. No name for her last name. No family. No history. Just a small girl. And a silver key pendant around her neck. By the time she was 29, Yulia had worked every cleaning job available. Train stations. Shopping centers. Office buildings. She got up at 4:30 every morning. 1 hour by bus across the city. 30 minutes walking through an industrial district in the dark. To arrive before the office workers. To clean floors that would be dirty again before she reached the far end. She did it without complaint. Without self-pity. Because she had a daughter. Vera. 10 years old. 4th grade. Top of her class. And for Vera, Yulia would have dragged a freight train with her bare hands. She wanted the little girl to have everything she herself never had. A warm home. Someone who always came back. Someone who stayed. The job in Viktor's building paid well. Better than the others. She had only been there a few weeks. She didn't know the names of any of the executives. She barely looked up when they walked past. But on this particular Tuesday morning, one of them stopped and looked at her like he had seen a ghost. To understand why Viktor stopped that morning, you have to go back, way back, to a Sunday in May. A man in his early 30s. A little girl in a new orange tracksuit. 2 tickets to a park with a pond. Swans. Ice cream. The whole perfect afternoon. Viktor had been married to Katia since they were practically children. They had grown up in the same building. Gone to the same school. Fallen into love the way you fall into something that was always waiting for you. When Yulia was born, Viktor said later that the world simply rearranged itself. He remembered standing in the maternity ward corridor, hands shaking. Katia handed him the bundle. He looked at the baby's face. Dark lashes, a tiny birthmark above the upper lip, just like his, and something in his chest cracked open. Not broke, opened. Like a window in a room that had been sealed for years. He was consumed by love.
Instant.
Absolute.
Permanent.
That little girl became the center of everything. He taught her to walk in the living room. He was there for the first word. He made up stories every night. He learned her preferences, which songs she liked, which foods she refused, which stuffed animal she couldn't sleep without. He was that kind of father. The kind that shows up every single time. And then came that Sunday, the trip to the park. Just the two of them, Katia resting at home, the train, the pond, the swans, and the detour on the way back through a market near the station. Yulia stopped in front of a jewelry stall. She stared at the display with absolute toddler certainty. Papa. That one. She pointed at the key pendant. Silver. Delicate. On a simple cord. Viktor bought it without a moment's hesitation. He fastened it around his daughter's neck. She beamed at him. He pretended to take a photograph with his hands. The most beautiful girl in the world. She laughed. That laugh. He still heard it sometimes in quiet moments. Even now. Especially now. The platform was busy. A Sunday afternoon. Families returning from outings. Market traders packing up. A group of young men who were already clearly drunk before sunset. Viktor noticed them, made a mental note to stay away, moved to the opposite end of the platform with Yulia. The train arrived. They boarded. Yulia was tired. She fell asleep against Viktor's jacket almost immediately. He watched her sleep, the key pendant on her chest, rising and falling. He thought, this is what I work for. This exact moment. This small person. When the train was 2 stops from home, Viktor felt the familiar itch. He had quit smoking 3 years ago. But stress, even good stress, even the pleasant exhaustion of a full day with his daughter, still triggered the old craving. He glanced at Yulia, deeply asleep. He looked at the forward car. 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes in the smoking car. She won't even know I was gone. He covered her with his jacket. He walked forward. He lit a cigarette, leaned against the wall, exhaled. And then the men he had avoided on the platform appeared in the doorway. 3 of them, drunk, aggressive, looking for exactly this, a man alone. What happened next lasted less than 4 minutes. But it cost Viktor everything. They hit him first without any warning. He fought back. He had been a boxer once, but 3 against 1 is not a fight. It's an execution. The last thing Viktor remembered was the cold floor of the carriage, the sound of wheels on tracks, and a distant animal terror about his daughter. He woke up in a hospital. 3 ribs broken, concussion, 2 teeth gone, and Yulia nowhere. The police searched. The city was plastered with photographs of a small girl in an orange tracksuit. Every station on the line, every village nearby. Witnesses came forward. 2 women had been seen with a small girl matching Yulia's description, begging in an underpass several stations away. But the trail disappeared after that. Weeks became months. Months became a year. Viktor lost his job. He stopped eating properly. He stopped sleeping. Katia tried to hold them together. She blamed herself for not going with them that day. She blamed Viktor for leaving Yulia alone. She blamed the world for existing in a way that allowed this to happen. They never said any of this to each other. They didn't have to. The silence said it all. After 1 year, Katia moved back to her parents. She wasn't leaving forever. She just needed to breathe. But Viktor understood. The apartment was full of Yulia. Her drawings still on the refrigerator. Her shoes still by the door. Her stuffed rabbit still on the bed. The one she couldn't sleep without. Viktor sat in that apartment for 6 months. He drank. Not occasionally. Constantly. He sold the furniture. Piece by piece. The sofa. The television. The bookshelf. The children's things, he couldn't touch those. He was on his way to losing the apartment itself. And then one gray morning he walked outside without knowing why, and saw something that changed everything. He was heading to a bar. Not even a nice bar. The kind of place that opens at 8 in the morning for people like him. 3 blocks from the apartment. And on the way there, a nurse in a white coat, pushing a stroller. 2 children on either side of it. Maybe 3 years old. Maybe 4. All wearing identical small coats. They walked with the particular quiet of children who have learned not to make noise. Who have learned that requests are rarely answered. Who have simply stopped asking.
Viktor stared.
These were children from the local orphanage. He could tell immediately, not by anything he could name exactly, but by the way they moved through the world, carefully taking up as little space as possible. As if they had been told, without words, that they were guests here. And guests must not make demands. Viktor stood on the pavement until they disappeared around the corner. Something ancient and functional switched back on inside him. Not hope, not joy, just clarity. He was standing here. He was alive. He had hands. He had a working mind. And there were children in this city who needed exactly what he still had to give. He didn't go to the bar. He went home. He made coffee. He called a former colleague. And he asked for a job. Now let me tell you what happened to the little girl. Because she didn't remember it clearly. But the gaps told their own story. From witness accounts, from the investigation, from the fragmentary memories Yulia carried into adulthood. Here is what most likely happened. The women who took her from the train were not strangers in the predatory sense. They were desperate, addicted, using children the way people in their condition often do. Not out of cruelty exactly, out of need. Yulia was small, fair, blue-eyed. She inspired pity in passers-by. She was useful. She was taken from station to station, town to town. She cried for her father. At some point, she stopped crying. She stopped talking entirely. Not because anything had been done to her physically, but because somewhere in the mind of a 3-year-old girl, a decision was made. If I am very quiet, if I am very still, nothing worse will happen. This is a thing that small children do when the world becomes incomprehensible. They go inside. They wait. Yulia was found eventually, on a train platform in a city hundreds of kilometers from where she had disappeared. A police officer spotted her. He brought her in. She told him her name, just her first name, Yulia. She couldn't remember anything else. The officer's name was Anton. And when the system couldn't find her family, when no one came forward, she was given his name. Yulia Antonovna Sidorova, named after the man who found her. She carried that name into adulthood, along with the silver key, which she never took off, not once, in over 25 years. Viktor spent the next decade becoming someone useful. Slowly, not dramatically, just quietly, deliberately, one decision at a time. He got sober. He got back to work. He got good at work. So good that eventually he started his own construction firm. He built things. Literally. Buildings. Extensions. Renovations. There was something deeply satisfying about taking raw material and turning it into something solid and lasting. Something that would still be standing long after the builders were gone. The company grew. Viktor hired people. He paid them well. He gave work to people the industry tended to overlook. Ex-convicts. Long-term unemployed. People recovering from addiction. He didn't make a big deal of this. He just did it. Because he remembered being a man who had nothing. Who needed someone to open a door. He became wealthy. And he spent his wealth carefully. Monthly donations to hospitals. To children's homes. To funds that supported sick children. He visited orphanages personally. He brought supplies. He played with the children. He always looked at the girls, especially the ones with fair hair and blue eyes. He always thought, what if one of them is you? He never found her. He hired private detectives twice. Both times the trail went cold. Too many years. Too many gaps. The detective's final report said, the child may be living under a different name, in a different city. Without her cooperation, finding her is essentially impossible. Viktor folded that report into a drawer. He kept going. He had to, because one morning, years into his new life, he met a woman named Christina. Christina was a volunteer at a children's home. She was 12 years younger than him. She was extraordinary. She said, I love you, before he did. In a kitchen at an orphanage, surrounded by boxes of donated supplies. He married her. They had children. Timofey and Varia. Beautiful, healthy, well-loved children. Viktor was a devoted father to them. He showed up. Every single time. He made stories. He attended every competition. He learned their preferences. He was the father he had always known how to be. But there was a room in his chest that never fully warmed, that never stopped waiting. And 26 years after the park and the swans and the silver key. A Tuesday morning. An early arrival at the office. A cleaning woman stepping back from a bucket. Pendant catching the light. He stopped walking. He stared. The woman glanced up. She looked uncomfortable. The way employees do when management stares at them for no obvious reason. "Excuse me," Viktor said. His voice came out strangely. Hoarse. Too quiet. "I'm sorry, that pendant you're wearing." She looked down at it instinctively, then back at him. "What about it? Where did you get it?" A pause. "I've had it my whole life," she said carefully. "I was found with it, at a train station, when I was 3. Viktor's hand found the wall. He pressed his palm flat against it. "Steady, steady. What's your name?" "Yulia." One word. The right word. He looked at her face. Really looked. The blue eyes. The birthmark above the lip. The particular shape of the jaw. He had looked at his own reflection for over 50 years. He knew that face. He knew it from the inside out. "Yulia," he said, "I need to tell you something. Something that is going to sound completely impossible. But please listen to the whole thing." She looked at him, cautious. A woman who had learned to be careful with men who spoke urgently. "I have 5 minutes before my shift ends," she said. "Say what you need to say." He told her. All of it. Standing in a corridor. The park. The swans. The jewelry stall. The key pendant. The cigarette. The men. The hospital. Waking up to discover she was gone. 26 years of searching. 2 private detectives. Children's homes across the region. The pendant described in his own words before she could say a thing about it. The silver key. On a simple cord. Bought on a station platform on a May afternoon for a 3-year-old girl in an orange tracksuit. Yulia stood very still through the whole story. Her face went through several things. Doubt. Then something softer than doubt. Then something that looked like the expression of a person who is trying very hard not to hope. When Viktor finished, she said nothing for a long moment. Then she said, "This could be a coincidence." "Yes," he said. "It could." A silence. "My patronymic," she said slowly. "I was given it after the officer who found me. His name was Anton. That's all they told me. I don't know anything about my real family." "Your real name," Viktor said carefully, "was Yulia Viktorovna. After me." She looked at him, and whatever was left of the wall inside her quietly began to crack. She agreed to a DNA test, not because she believed him, or maybe because she already did, but because she needed proof. Something solid. Something she could hold. Something no one could take away. The results took 10 days. 10 days in which Viktor could barely function. He sat at his desk and stared at reports without reading them. He came home and sat at the dinner table and answered questions without hearing them. Christina knew something was happening. She waited. She didn't push. On the 11th morning, the envelope arrived. Viktor opened it in his car. In the parking lot. He read the result. He sat there for a very long time. Not crying. Not moving, just breathing. Breathing the way you breathe when something you have carried for 26 years is finally set down. He called Yulia. She answered on the first ring. "It's confirmed," he said. A long silence. And then, from the other end of the phone, the sound of a woman trying not to cry. Failing. "I didn't know," she said. "I always felt like something was missing. I always thought my parents had been terrible people, that they just didn't want me." "No," Viktor said. "I want you to hear this clearly. You were never abandoned. You were taken. And I spent 26 years trying to find you." They went to see Katya. Viktor and Yulia. Together. Katya had remarried. She had a son. She had been ill for years, a nervous condition, which Viktor had quietly funded from a distance without her knowing. When she opened the door and saw Yulia, She stood completely still for 3 full seconds. Then she pulled her daughter into her arms. No words. No explanation needed. Mothers recognize. That's just a fact. They recognize. Katia recovered faster than her doctors expected after that. Viktor said later he thought it was the reunion. The lifting of something that had been sitting on her chest for a quarter of a century. Yulia moved into Viktor's house. Her and Vera both. Vera, who had only ever known a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, dormitory rooms, shared kitchens, walked into Viktor's house and whispered, "Mama, there's a garden." "I know, sweetheart. With actual trees in it." "I know. Are we allowed to go in it?" Yulia laughed through tears. "Yes, it's ours." Timofey and Vera welcomed Vera immediately. The 3 of them became inseparable within days. Yulia enrolled in university. Night classes. The degree she had never been able to afford. Viktor created a position for her in the company. Something real. Something that used her intelligence. Because she was, and he saw this immediately, her father's daughter. Sharp, methodical, honest to the bone. And above her desk in her new office, a small silver key in a frame. Because some things you keep, not to remember the loss, but to remember the finding. 6 months after the reunion, Viktor received a call from a researcher. A genealogy service he had registered with years ago. Something in the DNA database had produced a result. Partial match. A sibling. Viktor sat forward. He didn't have any siblings. But the match was to Yulia's profile, registered through the DNA test. And the person who matched was a woman. Living 3 cities away. Also in the system. Also looking. She was 41 years old. Also abandoned as a child. Also found on a train platform. A different year. A different city. Same DNA. Viktor called Yulia. He read her the report. A very long silence. Then she said, "Does she know yet?"
No.
"They need your permission to contact her." Another silence. "Yes," Yulia said. "Tell her yes. I've been sitting with this story for a while, and there's one detail that keeps pulling me back. Viktor bought that pendant on the last day he was ever truly innocent. Before the loss. Before the guilt. Before the years of drinking and silence and rebuilding. He bought it because his daughter pointed at it. Because she wanted it. Because making her happy was the simplest and most complete joy he had ever experienced. And she kept it. Through everything. Through the years she cannot remember. Through the children's home. Through the foster carers who weren't good enough. Through the factory dorms and the early mornings and the floors that never stayed clean. She kept the key. Not knowing why. Just knowing. It felt like something that mattered. There's a thing I believe about the people we've lost. Not lost to death, lost to time. To circumstance. To one wrong turn on one wrong day. Those people leave traces. Not always. Not always in ways that work out. But sometimes. Sometimes a silver key on a thin cord is the thing that keeps 2 people connected across 26 years of distance. Sometimes coincidence is just love's longer name. If this story reached you somewhere true, if any part of it felt like something you needed to hear today, subscribe right now. Every week I'm here with a story like this one. Not perfect stories. Not tidy stories. Real ones. Stories about people who lost something and kept going anyway. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, found it again. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments. What would you have done in Viktor's position? If you had seen that pendant, if something told you this could be your lost child, would you have stopped? Or would you have told yourself it was just a coincidence and kept walking? There is no wrong answer. But I think a lot about what small things we miss when we're too busy to look up. And next week, I have a story about a woman who found a photograph tucked inside a secondhand book. A photograph of a woman who looked exactly like her. Same face, same eyes, different decade, different continent. And when she went looking for answers, She found out something about her family that had been buried for 70 years. That one will stop you completely. Same place. Same time. I'll see you there.